being just a little bit more on, I say, fluffy side or a little bit bigger than what you think you should be, but that's strong. Guess what? Can you get out of a chair? That's huge. Can you bring all your groceries in one trip? That's huge. What we need to be doing is training for our future self and quit worrying about that size 2, 4, 6, whatever we're trying to get into in those jeans, and think about, okay, you know what? I have the butt and legs, and that's okay.
Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. Today, it's a pleasure to welcome Amy Wilson to the show. Amy is a board-certified geriatric pharmacist, a certified fitness professional, and a certified nutrition coach who's shaking up the fitness industry and helping her clients take control of their health. We'd love to hear that on this show. With over 30 years of experience, Amy specializes in creating personalized health plans that address her clients' unique barriers so they can be successful. She is very passionate about preventing and reversing diseases like prediabetes, diabetes, high cholesterol, using lifestyle, using nutrition and fitness. Amy's mission is to empower her clients to feel in control of their bodies and minds without feeling tied down by the scale. So in our conversation today, you are going to learn the root causes of obesity and weight gain, the origins and current use of GLP-1 drugs like the semaglutide and tirzepatide, and some of the newer ones that I can't even pronounce, drugs like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and others for diabetes, and now weight loss, their pros, their cons, long-term effects, and what most people can do instead from a lifestyle perspective. Amy, it is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, Philip, I am so excited to be here. My favorite conversation to have.
Awesome. Yes. So you had this long career as a pharmacist and nutrition coach, and I know you talk about the trifecta kind of unique combination of your background and skills. And now you're kind of helping people, I'll say, disrupt the diet industry, because sometimes that's what we need to do when we talk about these topics. How did your background in pharmacy influence the approach that you have today with nutrition and weight management, for example?
It was kind of like my own journey, really, because I became a fitness instructor at 17. I was one of the people who always tried to out train a bad diet. Let's just be honest. That's what I did. That's what a lot of us still try to do. We try to out work out the things that we're eating. Like, oh, you see all the t-shirts, I run for tacos or whatever it is. And it wasn't really until I became a geriatric pharmacist and working in the nursing homes that I really started seeing more lifestyle diseases. Because here's what's happening is that it used to be in what you're probably thinking of a nursing home is that it's people in the later stages of their life, their 90s, their hundreds, that they can't live by themselves, they're frail. The problem is that is not what's going on today. Now it's 40s, 50s, 60-year-olds who are in nursing homes. A good majority have been because of maybe lifestyle, maybe it's a stroke at an early age, heart attacks, diabetes, which causes issues with your kidneys, so renal disease, could be because they lost a limb due to diabetes. So I started looking at this with my journey going through perimenopause, menopause, gaining weight. And it was one of those aha moments that I'm like, okay, yeah, I am still trying to out train a bad diet, but it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than chasing skinny, which a lot of us have been doing forever. It's now that, hey, I'm in midlife and I don't feel like I'm in my 50s. I still feel like I'm in my 20s and 30s. And I want to make sure that in my 80s and 90s, I'm feeling like I'm in my 50s and 60s. So it's now stopped to chase skinny. It's now starting to focus on health and strength, which is nutrition and weightlifting, to change the course, to change our course. And what I started seeing was that, hey, with my clients that came to me, it's like they'll go to the doctor. The doctor says, you're pre-diabetic, or maybe you're diabetic, or you have a heart condition that you're high blood pressure or high cholesterol. And they come to me, it's like, hey, I don't want to be on medication. Well, I'm a pharmacist who prefers that you're not on medication. Medication is a great thing, but it should be the last resort. It should be the first thing. You can reverse. So that's where I started seeing a picture is like, you know what? We can prevent you from being in one of my nursing homes. That's really my ultimate mission is let's stop that. Let's start working on prevention, which is what we should be doing for healthcare instead of going for the medication and thinking that, oh, there's a pill to fix that. How about we start using food and fitness to fix it?
You're speaking my language and that of those who listen to this show 100%, especially when you talk weightlifting, because I agree as well. And I think until you get into this space and start to apply these, whether it's to yourself or with clients or others, and you see how life changing just small differences in your habit in a
Mhm,
very short period. I mean, like I didn't start really getting in shape till I was almost 40, and I've seen my peers degrade. And again, I'm only in my 40s, and yet I see people who look 10, 20 years older. And, it often does come right down to muscle mass,
mhm.
and just having that lifestyle. And doctors give typically the same advice: diet and exercise, do your cardio, cut out this, cut out that, right? I was surprised for you to say that nursing homes are now filled with much younger people. Like, I just wasn't aware of that statistic. And I think it's another wake up call, perhaps, for what we need to do here. So I guess let's dissect a little bit the obesity and the muscle mass, kind of both sides of that equation, and the root causes of all of this, because I think that's going to lead to, when we talk about these medications and people who are on them and maybe things that they're not doing that they could be doing and maybe don't have to be on them, that's where people want to be. So let's talk about the rise in obesity and what they're linked to beyond the obvious, is the way I'll put it.
So let's take a
Okay.
trip down memory lane. If you know, and all of us who are maybe Gen X, and even if you're millennial, you'll kind of get this. In the 70s, if you look back at pictures, people were skinny. You're like, wow, what happened? Well, the unfortunate part of the 70s is that people were having heart attacks. And it was a lot. And so we had all these groups saying, oh my gosh, we got to do something about all these heart attacks. It must be fat. It must be all this saturated fat that's causing it. So instead of kind of looking at other things, they're like, it's fat, 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 fat's the problem. Guess what happened in the 80s? We replaced fat. We went
Yep.
low fat. We
Low
went
fat.
fat free.
Snack wells.
Snap exactly.
That's the classic, right?
That's the classic, snack well.
Olestra. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the
Right.
thing is, what we have a lot of belief systems, and a lot of our belief system is multimedia or things that we read over and over and over again that just kind of ingrains us. So we had this where fat was bad. The problem is when you go with fat-free, low fat, you're now going with additives, chemicals, preservatives, and sugar. So we replace something. We replace being relatively thin and having some heart disease with now being overweight and diabetes and being insulin resistance because our bodies are just this huge chemical reaction. They require vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. They don't require preservatives, chemicals, artificial stuff. And in fact, they don't have no idea what to do with that. Cause us to be hungry. When you think about going to something like Chinese, let's say, just because you're just having a lot of carbohydrates, it spikes your blood sugar, you're usually hungry a couple hours later. Same thing when you're eating a bunch of diet food. Think about when you're on a diet and you're eating the lean cuisines, the healthy choice, the diet bars, the diet shakes, you're starving all the time. It's because you're not giving your body the nutrition that it needs. So we're in this diet culture and we're bigger than ever, which is just crazy. So we've created this culture. We've also created the convenience culture that, hey, mom, you're too busy to cook. Come through the drive through. Let us help you. Let us make your life easier. And a lot of these conveniences have also caused us to have a very poor relationship with food, not get the best food in our system. And then we're also addicted to this food, which causes our problem now is we have obesity. And now we're thinking that, oh, I can't do anything about it. I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to do this. I don't understand what food is correct. What food should I eat? How much do I need? What do I need? Why are diets bad? There's so much misinformation in there. And all we're doing is making it easier, unfortunately, to gain weight and to be out of shape and to not be healthy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've heard this termed as the obesogenic environment. And like you said, there's a huge, not only misinformation, but now misalignment between probably what our bodies will thrive from and be nourished by, and what is out there and what we're seeking through, a lifetime from childhood of having these in our food environment. And we see this with other cultures around the world who are untouched by Western culture, and then they significantly decline in that, once they get access to it. Even the Hadza tribe now that you hear, they've got some Westernization going on, and they're starting to get, poorer outcomes. Before we move on from this, there's always the debate about, is it food? Is it behavior? Is it emotional eating? There's even the theories about like body fat set point, and I don't know if you know Stephen Guyenet. Yeah, is that how you pronounce his name? The brain, what's it called? He wrote the book about the brain, Hungry Brain, I think it was called, about like the programming of our brain and also how our body fat set point tends to worsen as we yo-yo diet over time. I mean, kind of touch on some of those so that we can maybe simplify it for the listener to say, no, it is really this, but also we can do something about it. And we're not going to like throw you under the bus and say it's your fault, but we also know we can take power over it.
So, especially for females, since we've been dieting since probably age 15, 16, every time we dieted, we slowed our metabolism down. So, don't hate me, ladies. And men do. This happens too. Every time you starve yourself, your body is going to need fuel for something. Your body needs to run. Our bodies are programmed to try to survive. You need amino acids, it's coming from your muscle. You need vitamins, minerals, it's coming from your bones. You don't give it what it needs, it's going to figure out a way to survive. The problem is every single time that you did this, because go back and think about, oh my God, but that one diet worked so well. I got my skinny jeans or I got in the dress that I wanted and it was great. And I get a lot of clients like this. They're like, but why are things taking so slow now? I said, did it really work? You're here now. It didn't work. If something can't work for the long term, if you can't sustain it, that means it didn't work. So every time that you did one of these diets, every time that you lost weight, you pretty much lost muscle. You might have lost a little body fat, a little bit of water, but you lost muscle. Muscles are metabolism. Muscles are fountain of youth. When you lose that, you slow your metabolism down every single time. And then all of a sudden, 40, 50, your hormones switch and they start changing. And you can't understand why you're gaining weight so fast. Yes. Does it happen with perimenopause, menopause? It absolutely does. Does it happen with men as they get older, especially if they have body fat? Because now they have estrogen because they have body fat. So when you start doing that, the weight keeps coming on because we kind of set ourselves up for this. But the good news is that yes, you can reverse. Yes, you can get that muscle back. You can decrease your body fat. You can change your body composition, but you can't do it starving and you can't do it with doing hours of cardio.
Couldn't have said it better. That was a good summary of the whole idea that, yeah, if you're constantly, like you said, starving yourself, you're accelerating this process. You're losing muscle with age from the fact that you're not using it probably. Mm-hmm. And then hormones accelerate that process even further, peri and postmenopause, but also with men and lower testosterone and everything else. But you can reverse it at any point. Tell us how old can you be before none of this works?
Oh, I have clients in their 70s and 80s. So exactly. I would say, yeah, exactly. What I tell anybody, if you want to change, if you are ready, it doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, we see it all the time. You'll see stories in People magazine, GMA, Good Morning America, of somebody who you can consider old, elderly, who totally changed who they were. And maybe they got rid of a disease state or they lessened a disease state because they finally said, it's enough. I'm done. I am going to get healthy and this is going to be who I am now. And I think that is what you have to decide is that I always have people it's like, oh, but they want to pick and choose, but I want to do this, but I don't want to do this. I want to do this, but I want to do this. You have to realize is that they're a bunch of puzzle pieces and you have to put them all together. Does it have to be difficult? No. And that's what I want. It's like, let me get on my soapbox and stomp my feet. It does not have to be difficult, but you do have to do some changing and you do have to be changing your beliefs and some myths that you've been believing for maybe years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We're going to tease now. So some of these lifestyle things we're talking about, we're going to tease that for later in the episode because what I want to do now is segue into the origin of some of these weight loss drugs and then kind of the journey of, people's usage of them, how we think of them, and then eventually tie that into what can we do instead? Like what's kind of more optimal approach that gives you control of your situation. The GLP-1 drugs, and you can get as technical as you want. I love geeking out on this stuff and a lot of the listeners do, so don't worry about that. They're super popular. There's a lot of confusion over naming, but I know there's the compound names like semaglutide. And by the way, the Wall Street Journal had in their podcast recently, like a background on these drugs from the 90s. And they talked to the guy who invented the original one. And he said, it's pronounced semaglutide. I don't know if you agree with that, but a lot of people say semaglutide. So anyway, he said it.
Whatever he says, that's what we're going with. Yeah.
So semaglutide, tirzepatide, and others that then have brand names, very well known, like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. And then you pointed out Zepbound as well. So where am I going with these? So now these drugs were originally designed for diabetes. And what's the origin that you know of? And how do they work in the body control to change things? Like I know they control hormones or maybe blood sugar. How do they work exactly?
So it is a huge discovery. So GLP-1 is a hormone that's in the gut. Let me say, like I said before, is that medication is sometimes needed. Absolutely. But we have to realize is medication sometimes in a lot of ways is a treatment, not a cure, especially for lifestyle diseases. What we want to do is try to cure it with fitness and nutrition. Now, if you're type 1, but type 1 diabetics won't be on GLP-1s. But this was, yes, we've had GLP-1s for years. And I'll get that people like, but it's been safe. Okay. GLP-1s have been pills that you take on a daily basis for diabetes. With those, there's been a small amount of weight loss. Not a lot, maybe 5%. When someone's diabetic type 2, that is good. We want them to lose some weight. The problem, or I'll say the problem, is that what happened with GLP-1s is that they were a daily pill. Great. Then they started looking at a once a week injection. And that's where everything changed. So, what is a GLP-1? GLP-1 is a glucagon like peptide that is secreted in your gut. It helps with insulin secretion, it decreases or inhibits glucagon secretion, and then it also slows down gastric motility. In the injection form, it's like GLP-1 times 100. So, it's more powerful. We didn't realize that there's also GLP-1s in your brain. That's just recent, which I think is just let me geek out. Totally freaking cool, right? Totally cool. It's like, okay, so why didn't the pill work? Well, what happens when you eat, because guess what? You could stimulate GLP-1 naturally because it works naturally. We have it in our system naturally. When you have fiber, when you have protein, when you have high water content vegetables, when you have healthy fats, that will stimulate your GLP-1 naturally. The thing about a GLP-1, it has what's called a very short half-life. It gets released, it does its job, it tells you not to eat anymore, it slows down the motility, and then it goes bye-bye. Perfect. It's doing what your body wants. Now, the injections have a very long half-life, and so they last in the body a long time. That's where we're getting some of the issues with possibly crossing the blood-brain barrier because now we're seeing that there are GLP-1 receptors in the brain. Why it may be helping with people with addiction issues, that might be part of an addiction, which is kind of cool. But what it also does is it turns on some maybe nausea receptors. It can really slow down your gut motility to the point where it causes something called gastroparesis, which is the total shutdown of your gut. That's not a good thing. And it's unfortunately not reversible. And the other issues is that it makes you nauseated. It makes you not hungry. And I know every female is going, yes, finally, I won't be hungry. But guess what? That's not a good thing. That really isn't a good thing. I know we crave food. A lot of times we crave food because of not feeding our bodies properly, because we are what I call sugar burner, is you're constantly feeding your body carbohydrates and sugar and not getting also your fats and proteins and your good complex carbohydrates in. So you're balancing your blood sugar. So you're not always reaching for those candy bars. So not being hungry and not eating. Remember I told you what happens when we're younger and we stop eating, we lose muscle and we start going from our bones. Well, hello midlife women. The thing that we don't need to do is lose muscle and lose things from our bones. You don't. And men, I see osteoporosis in men now. Don't need to be doing that either. So the problem with GLP-1s is that, yes, can they cause you to lose weight and be skinny? Yeah. But what we're going to start seeing in 4, 5, 6 years down the road with these people who have been on it for a long period of time. And first of all, if you're on it, I am not condemning you because if you're on it, please be working with somebody to make sure that you're getting enough fuel and making sure that you're keeping your muscle. If you are on it and you're not doing that, what could possibly happen if you don't start taking care of your body and your fuel and your muscle and working on eating enough is that you're going to lose muscle. Your bones are become brittle. And what we're going to start seeing is frailty. And that's a geriatric term, meaning if you see somebody who is shuffling, who looks old, who looks like they just blow over, if you just, blow on them and they're going to blow over, it looks like any bone will break any second. We're going to start seeing hip fractures. We're going to start seeing people in the nursing homes who are young due to a GLP-1 because we're using this as a lifestyle drug without taking the responsibility to make sure that we're using it correctly.
Good. Yeah, you touched okay, two excellent topics we should get into. One is going to be the muscle loss. I want to start there, and the other will be the what do we do in conjunction, even if you are taking it to actually at least get the best result out of it. So first, the
Mhm.
muscle loss. All right, we all I shouldn't say we all know, but people who listen to this show have heard me say many times, if you're not strength training and you lose weight, which is what most people are doing throughout their life when they diet, they lose muscle mass and then they gain fat back and they constantly get more skinny fat or they just get overall closer to that obese level of body fatness. Does treatment with these GLP-1s increase muscle loss above and beyond what you would be if you were just in a crash diet on your own, mimicking the same deficit as being on these drugs? Or is there something above and beyond that it's causing?
I'm gonna say it's above and beyond. And the reason is most time a crash diet, the most that you can be on it by yourself is 5 to 10 days. Because by then you're like, binge, right? Because that's what happens. Your body's like, feed me, feed me.
Hyperphagia, yeah. Yeah.
Right. And with the GLP-1s, it turns that off. So you're never hungry. So it's kind of like you're crash dieting for a very long period of time. Body needs amino acids. It is going to get it from muscle. And then somebody's gonna be like, oh, but you know what? I'm gonna work out too, and I'm gonna lift weights so that I can keep my muscle. Wrong answer. Because if you're not giving your body what it needs, if you're not fueling your body, if you're not giving it protein, fats, and carbohydrates, it's going to use it for just trying to it's not even going to try to maintain. That's the problem. You're not even giving enough to maintain. You're giving enough maybe to function, and that's it. And so there will be no muscle maintain. There'll be no muscle building, and
Okay.
actually working out could be even worse,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay, no, so that's good. And yeah, you make a fair point that you could have artificially be on a diet that would normally be completely unsustainable for a very long time because you're on this drug, which a lot of people is the purported benefit of it for people until you explain to them all these dark sides. So I had a client, I probably had other clients that were on this that I didn't know, but early on I had a client who was diabetic who was on the original Ozempic for that. Like this was right around the time then it turned into a weight loss drug. And it was amazing that she could go weeks or months at a time in a calorie deficit and always it was a 10 out of 10 on hunger, like no hunger, right?
Yeah, yeah.
To the point where I was worried, but I knew the symptoms of the drug and we were trying to do all the right things, right? She was lifting weights. She was eating a lot of protein. She was balancing her meals, but you kind of have to force it, right? Not force it, but you have to deliberately do those things. And we kept the weight loss moderate. So it was interesting because she almost had trouble eating enough because of her appetite being so suppressed. Eating enough to stay in a moderate deficit. It was like the drug was wanting to get her way down into this ridiculous rate of loss. So then given all that, is there any good way to use this? You mentioned treatment versus cure. Is there like you get a boost initially to get into some healthy regime and then you get off of it? Or, you take it for a while, get all your lifestyle in gear, and then you get off of it. I just want to throw that out there if there's a possibility of it.
There are physicians
Yeah.
who are starting to do that and making sure that they are in conjunction with a healthy diet, making sure that they're getting everything. They're coming in and they're actually doing their body composition to show that if they start losing muscle. But the problem is there's very few who are doing that.
Yeah. No
And
surprise.
that, I mean, that's right. I hate to say it, it is a cash cow. It's a moneymaker. The big pharma has seen that, you know what? The biggest issue with Ozempic, Wegovy, is people losing muscle. So guess what? They're coming out with another medication. They're looking at another medication that's using for muscle preservation.
Oh boy.
Now, I'm going to say, perfect. That is amazing for someone with multiple sclerosis. That's
Yeah.
amazing for other issues. So if that's what it takes to get that kind of medication, great. But you're looking at someone who has Ozempic, let's say they're having bowel issues. So they're on something for that. They're having nausea. They're having on something for that. They are having muscle wasting. So they're on something for that. And it's like now you have this big polypharmacy to be skinny. Now I totally get people are like, I'm obese. I need something. This is what's working. Okay. Well, then we need to start looking at the ramp to get off. And that is slow and working with somebody because you're going to have to start learning how to eat, what you need to eat. And you're going to start having to learn how to lift and work out. And the biggest proponent I always get is like, but I don't have time. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have to think about to eat. I don't want to think about working out. It is, as trainers, we always say, choose your hard. What's your hard? Is your hard going to be in a nursing home in 10 years because of this? Or is your hard to learn how to change your lifestyle? For me, it's a no brainer. I work in the nursing home industry. I see what it's like. Excuse my language. Hell no. That's not what I want. And I think most people don't want that either. What we want to do is try to prevent that now. So yes, it's hard, but you can do it. And the thing is, we can make it doable with baby steps, and you do not have to work out for hours. 30 minutes a day, do something called NEAT, which is non exercise activity thermogenesis, which just means moving your body, and you are perfect. But we have to get out of our head, females, skinny does not equal healthy, and being in a certain size is maybe not what's right for you. And maybe it's being just a little bit more on, I say, fluffy side, or a little bit bigger than what you think you should be, but that's strong. Guess what? Can you get out of a chair? That's huge. Can you bring all your groceries in one trip? That's huge. What we need to be doing is training for our future self and quit worrying about that size 2, 4, 6, whatever we're trying to get into in those jeans, and think about, okay, you know what? I have the butt and legs, and that's okay.
Before I started working with Philip, I had been trying to lose weight and was really struggling with consistency. But from the very beginning, Philip took the time to listen to me and understand my goals. He taught me the importance of fueling my body with the right foods to optimize my training in the gym, and I lost 20 pounds. More importantly, I gained self-confidence. What sets Philip apart is the personal connection. He supported and encouraged me every step of the way. So if you're looking for a coach who cares about your journey as much as you do, I highly recommend Philip Pape.
Absolutely. We need to get this message out because I've met with a cardiologist this week and a trainer this week, and it seems to be coming up more and more and more, this concept of there's body image, there's body fatness, there's skinny fat, and there's all of this gets conflated together. And at the end of the day, like you said, do you want to be in your 70s or 80s, not able to get off the toilet, or in a nursing home, or on 20 medications? And I see it in my family, and I'm sure everyone listening who has an older parent or grandparent has seen what frailty does, and it's not inevitable. Like, that's the message. It's definitely not inevitable, even though it is 95% of the population probably, which is sad. So okay, before we get to more digging into lifestyle, then just back on the GLP-1 drugs here, I've heard the advertisements and I've heard the stories that come on in the media where people will say, I just couldn't lose weight, right? Weight loss resistance. And there was no way I was going to lose weight. And now I'm on this and it's changed my life. And it's always that message of, oh, I wish I could look at their lifestyle. I wish I could do like an intake with them and see the simple things they could change. I know they're not lifting weights. I hate to say it. I just know it, because if you are, all of this stuff tends to go away. You could even eat more food and lose weight. I mean, it's crazy. What are your thoughts on that? Kind of the more touchy side of it there.
I mean, okay, so let's talk about the celebrities who are on it. Said, I've tried everything and not, yeah, I would love to see, okay, were you really lifting weights?
Yeah.
What were you eating? Were you eating everything from the craft cart that's coming in that they're catering? Are you focusing on real food? Are you focusing on the diet, the quick fixes? Because let's face it, in Hollywood, what they do is they do quick fixes, quick fixes, quick fixes. And guess what? It catches up with you. So, could some of them be insulin resistance and maybe they do need this? Absolutely. There is a possibility, but you have to use it with nutrition and lifting weights. There's not, oh, let me just do Ozempic and not forget about this part. No, let's do this part. And if you have to have Ozempic, okay, we'll work with you. I'm not saying we'll figure this out and maybe it can be the lowest effective dose, period. But let's try this first and see what's going to happen. Here's the problem. That's slow. It's not sexy. It doesn't come off fast. It's frustrating. And what I love, James Clear, Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read that book,
I
right?
mention it all the time for sure.
Okay. So my favorite analogy is with the ice cube. And this is what I tell my clients over and over and over again when they're like, it's not coming, it's not coming. I'm like, okay, first of all, this didn't happen overnight. We are retraining and healing your body from the inside out. And you don't see the inside. You don't see what's going on. You don't see the chemical reactions that are now going boom. You don't see the muscle being built. So I want you to think yourself as an ice cube, but an ice cube doesn't melt until it hits 32 degrees. But guess what happens at 20, 21, 22, 23? All of a sudden, these atoms are moving faster and faster. All the molecules are moving faster and faster and faster and faster. But you don't see it. you still see this ice cube as a solid state. 29, 30, 31. It is still a freaking solid state. It's not moving. It's not budging. My body's not doing anything. And then all of a sudden at 32, we got a puddle. 33, puddle, puddle, without any ice in it whatsoever. Holy crap. How the heck did that happen? It's the same thing with our bodies. So it may not be 5 days. It may not be a month. It might be like for me, it was month 6 that all of a sudden I lost 7 inches from my hips. It was like, excuse me? That wasn't because of that month. That was 5 months prior of everything working and building and getting to the point where it needed to be so that my body could start saying, okay, we're doing muscle and we're going to start burning fat. It takes time. And that's what people don't want. And unfortunately, we're in the give it to me now society. Instagram. Don't like it, flick up to the next reel. Let me go look on it on Amazon so I can get it in one day. All those kind of things. And we have to realize that our body is not on that timetable. Our body's on whatever timetable it wants to be. And mine's different than yours and different than whoever's listening to this right now. It's different. But the one thing I can tell you is that we don't get side effects from food and weightlifting.
Yeah, no, nothing but good side effects.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the power of compound habit is so true.
It's
It's like
huge.
this flat line that starts to accelerate eventually. Someone else put it to me this way, at least in fitness. After 3 weeks, you start to feel it. After 3 months, you start to see it. And after 3 years, you start to be it. It was like this idea of, it's a really long-term process. And even after a year or two, you're still figuring things out and developing the skills, but it's so much fun. The actual process can be so much fun if you, kind of do it the right way for you. You mentioned, okay, so a couple other things that came up. One is you mentioned effective dose. I was wondering about that when it came to these drugs. It sounds like there are different dosage levels you can have. It's not just one pen that everybody gets. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they typically started at the lowest or?
They're started at the
yeah.
lowest and then they'll keep increasing. And just know that there are people who are resistant to these drugs too. There are people that it does not work with. So, and then there's some people, they'll get the side effects right away. Then they refuse to do it because they're getting the nausea, the vomiting, that they stop right away. Once again, everybody's different. We all have a different DNA profile. And that's what people have to realize is that, and that's a beauty thing about the earth, the world, is that we are all different.
Right. The newest of the new drugs you mentioned, Zepbound or something. What's different between that and the older ones?
Well, I haven't seen the studies per se. I've just seen kind of like the blurbs is that it's supposed to be even more potent, which scares me.
Yeah.
But that's in America. What do we want? We want the max. We want the extreme. And yeah, it's kind of scary.
Well, especially since they are expensive. And I know, of course, people complain about it. And why isn't insurance covering it? Medicare doesn't cover weight loss drugs, all this other stuff. And, you've got the compounding pharmacy debate going on because the FDA put it on their shortage list. And so you got right? All of that. But like, if you just don't take it, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about somebody who has excessive weight to lose? Let's say they're up in the 300 plus range. I've heard these stories where the excuse, the reason, whatever you want to call it is, I just hurt too much to move and do any of the lifestyle things. Is there some point where you're like, yeah, maybe this actually is the last resort for someone? Or what are your thoughts?
I understand that. I do. But if you're going to use it, get with a trainer. What I have seen in my facilities is that those who are larger, it doesn't seem to work very well. And which I don't know why. And it could be because they don't move. It could be because their BMR is so low that just nothing's going to work. And yeah, they don't eat, they're not losing the body fat. And that it could be that they're resistance. I don't know. But okay, so if you start coming off and you're not hungry, okay, but let's start working on your muscle mass. Let's start working because I hate saying it at the end of the day, but I'm going to say it at the end of the day. If you don't have muscle, I went to a symposium a long time ago and it was a functional person. He said, our biggest issue growing old is buttlessness, is not having glutes.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
And I can totally see that because if you don't have glutes, you're not able to walk, you shuffle, you're not able to stand, you're not able to posture, you fall, go in the bathroom. So yeah, you're going to lose the weight. Great. It may help your heart. Great. It may decrease some of your diabetes. Great. But are you able to live? Are you able to walk? Are you able to do things?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Sue Bush on the show recently talking about glute training, and that was the premise, was the functionality of it. Not to mention just having a shapely butt; it's the function. So when people hurt, like when I hear these stories of larger individuals, and I've had a few clients that were on the bigger side, not necessarily like clinically obese, but like in the mid to upper 200s, let's say for a 5'10" male, that's getting up there. Even if things hurt, almost invariably, one of the solutions is just find a movement pattern that mimics
Mhm.
something that eventually becomes a full range lifting pattern and start doing it, and it will start to feel better. My own mom, she doesn't mind me talking about it. Like, same thing, painful knees, painful hips. We got her coming off the couch, getting that down to squats. All the
Mhm.
pain went away. Now she goes to the gym. I mean, I love stuff like that, when you're in your
Well,
60s and 70s.
and then you start eating right
Yeah.
and you
And
reduce
eating.
the and
Yes.
you start reducing the chronic inflammation that is also triggering pain.
Yes.
It's a win-win.
It's a
So
virtuous cycle. Yes.
it really is. You can't do one without the other. You really need both.
So then let's talk about lifestyle. Let's get a little bit more specific. If there's something you would recommend for those listening who maybe have been struggling with the whole cascade of things that we hear, it could be both they've had trouble losing weight due to whatever reason. They maybe have some cravings, emotional eating, quote unquote addicted to sugar and things like that. Although I always, I like to say you wouldn't go and eat from a bag of sugar. You're really addicted to other things that happen to have sugar and all those things. It's just, if somebody comes in and they're just a mess. Okay. Where do you start? Let's just go there.
The first thing is what I do. And when I train, I have virtual clients. I'm all over the world. And let me tell you, it's not just the United States that has this issue. I have
Mm.
clients in Europe and in Australia, and it's the same thing. So don't worry, we're not alone.
And
But
what is it with Australia? I also have a lot of clients there. I don't know. Maybe it's just because you speak English.
well, but with Australia, I think
Yeah.
too is that very similar to the United
Yeah.
States is that what they call takeaways. A lot of fast food, a lot of this kind of same issues that we have in America. The first thing to do is just okay. You have to look at everything. Look, so you made the decision to start, which is I think the biggest thing in the world is that you first of all said, okay, I'm going to start. I think the worst thing that you can do is what The Biggest Loser does, and they're like, here you go. You're going to work out for hours. We're going to give you all sorts of clean food and we're not going to tell you how to do it. And then they leave you on your own after when you go back to home and you have to go to work, and you have kids and stress, and you didn't learn how to incorporate in your life. So let's take baby steps. First week, how about we start eating some real food? How about we start looking at look at what you're eating every day. How many times are you going through the drive-through? What are you putting in your coffee every morning? What are you having with your coffee? Are you grabbing the donut, the bagel, the simple carbohydrates? Okay. Can we replace that with some eggs? Can we replace that with steel cut oatmeal? Can we replace that with chicken? Yes, you can do steak. You can do fish. How about we do some real food? And maybe just do it's one meal every day. And then the next time it's the next meal and next meal. The other thing too is don't be afraid to ask for help. There is no shame in the game. What I want people to understand is that what I coach is all about nutrition and fitness. Stay away from the quick fixes. Stay away from the shakes. Stay away from the things that promise, a huge weight loss. You need to start looking at health and wellness and strength. And that's where I think a lot of us make mistakes. And it's not that we're making mistakes, it's that we just don't know where to start. So if you can start getting rid of the processed food, let's say ultra processed food, because frozen vegetables are processed and they're amazing. Frozen fruit's amazing too. So we can start getting rid of the ultra processed foods, the stuff that has lots of chemicals, a lot of additives, preservatives, colors, and going back to really the basics of what we should be eating, then you are going to feel better and it's going to start being, you're going to see the cascade effect. You're going to see that this builds upon this, that builds upon this. And let me tell you, when you start eating real food, the amount that you have to eat is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is a
Volume.
lot.
Yep.
It is a lot of volume. And you're like, wait a minute, I should never be eating this much. I'm going to gain weight. No, you won't because you're eating real food. If you think about ultra processed food, it's already, this is really disgusting, but it's already processed for you and it gets
Digested for
absorbed.
you, yes.
It's digested for you and it gets absorbed.
Yeah.
Real food has to be digested. Not all the nutrients get absorbed. That's the difference. So yeah, you might be intaking the same amount of calories, and I hate calories. I do macronutrients, but we might be ingesting the same amount of calories, but you're getting so much more bang for your buck, and you're going to start seeing differences in your body.
Yeah. How many women at least have I met that said, I don't know if I could eat this much protein and I'm worried about gaining weight, adding all this protein, and the opposite happens, right? You're like, I can't keep the weight on. I need to actually eat more carbs and stuff now to make up for it.
Right. And what I tell people is that if it was working, you wouldn't be here.
Right. These are great. So first, I mean, you mentioned the decision to start, and actually we don't want to take that for granted. Like there's a huge amount of gratitude someone should have. Anyone listening to this show right now, our millions of listeners are saying, you know what, you're right. The first thing I need to do is just to decide and do that right now. Like do that right now. Even pause the podcast and like write down some of this stuff and do it. And then take baby steps, get that awareness, do that audit. I love Amy's approach of, I call it additive nutrition. Somebody else, I stole that term from somebody, but adding in the things that are, real foods. We're not thinking of, I can't eat this or I can't eat that. It's like, just add these things in. It's going to crowd out some of the ultra processed foods. At the end of the day, Amy, you're not telling people to not eat anything processed at all, are you?
No, this girl needs her chocolate chip cookies. I'm telling you right now. But here's the thing is that I still eat burgers. In fact, I'm having one tonight, but it's, I get
Well,
real
that sounds
burgers.
good.
I'm making it, I'm grilling it.
Mhm.
I still do pizza. I make it at home. We just forget that we can do things and it tastes so much better than going out and getting it.
For sure.
And we kind of forget that. I think what we need to remember is, we talk about when we just start and writing things down, don't write down about being skinny and why skinny is going to make you happy, because it's not. Happiness starts now. Happiness starts on the inside. I want you to think about your future self. She's looking back at you. He's looking back at you. And he's saying, thank you for doing X, Y, Z, because I'm now on the beach. I'm now living my best life. So what is XYZ? What are you doing to make sure that yourself in 20, 30 years is living their best life? And then work backwards and start doing that.
And ask for help. You said,
Yeah.
ask, there's no shame, ask for help right away. And that can come in many forms. So absolutely love that. I did want to, one side tangent we didn't get into any detail on, but I think it's important when we talk about health beyond the muscle mass and everything else, blood sugar and kind of insulin sensitivity and all of that people are often concerned about. Before we even get to pre-diabetic or worse than that, what should people be aware of and what kind of misinformation is there? Because I feel like there's a lot of it.
So, and as you get older, there is a possibility of having a higher A1C. A1C is a snapshot of what your blood sugar has been doing the past 3 months. So when we only eat processed foods or ultra processed foods, when we're only going for sugar and you're hungry every 2 hours, that means what you're called a sugar burner. What we want you to be is what's called metabolic flexible, that you are also a fat burner. And to do that, we do what's called blood sugar stabilization. And when you eat a protein, fat, and carbohydrate each time, that's going to help slow down digestion. It's going to help slow the release of sugar into your bloodstream, which will cause insulin to be released. And by the way, insulin is not a bad thing. It's like insulin is the devil. No, it's not. Once again, our body's a chemical reaction. We eat, our blood sugar gets raised, insulin does its job. It says, hey, muscles, liver, open up. I'm bringing you energy. The problem is when we keep eating a lot of crap and we keep flooding our blood with sugar and insulin keeps getting released and the muscles are like saying, the receptors are like, you know what, talk to the hand. I am so tired of you knocking on my receptor door. I am not opening up. And then that's why we get increase in blood sugar. We are seeing it more because of the ultra processed food, because of the fact that we don't move, because we don't lift weights. So stop the increase, stop the changes in your blood sugar now to the negative effect, and start working on whole food nutrition. Start getting that lifting in. The more muscle you have, the more insulin receptors you have, the less your blood sugar is going to be.
For sure. And that's an empowering message because these are simple changes like the balancing of your macros. There are a lot of benefits to doing that, period. One of them is just practically if you're like, well, I'm trying to hit a certain amount of protein, fats, and carbs. If I just eat balanced meals, I'm going to get there. And it's not this like race of, oh, now I got to do carbs. Now I got to do protein. And so that's really important. And you mentioned insulin and I don't know if you said glucagon, but I know we can get into pancreas and all that. But lifting weights, muscle mass also increase your insulin sensitivity quite a bit, don't they?
Yes, they do. And the other thing you can do is just go for a walk after you eat.
After you eat, yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be long. It's just a nice pace. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring your blood sugar down because guess what you're using? Your glutes, your legs, you're using all your muscles. Your muscle needs energy. It's going to take it from the blood glucose.
Amazing how that works. If you just use your body and
the way it's intended
and not sit around either. I'm harping more on that message lately is lift weights, move, don't not move. Like, I think they're three distinct buckets.
Yeah. We get in America is that one is good, 10 is better. And we think, okay,
Right.
move means that we have to leave it all on the floor. Great.
Like
Okay. I am an
exercise all the time. Yeah, yeah.
instructor. I understand. I used to always say, you got to leave it on the floor. It doesn't count unless your DNA is on the floor. BS. Yes. You need to hit and do your cardiovascular training. Absolutely. But not every single time and not for hours. Just moving every day. I have standing desks. So I stand during the day. Going for a walk, so underrated. We think that if we can't do something for an hour, it's not worth it. No, everything adds up.
And it's great for your mental health too. Even just like a
Yes.
10-minute walk, huge.
Yeah,
If you're
huge.
feeling a little bit down, if you're feeling like stressed, go for a walk. You see how much it improves your mood.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you had to say, Amy, this has been incredible and the time's flying by. If there's one thing, one piece of advice that you would give of either everything we've talked about or even something we haven't today to take control of their health, what is it?
And I always say this, people always ask me, what's the secret sauce? How is it that you can stay healthy? How is it that some of your clients have been able to drop the weight or get healthy? And I always tell them, you're the secret sauce. You hold all the keys to be able to get to your next level, to get to where you want to go. You just have to decide. But you are the secret sauce.
You are the secret sauce. I'm going to quote that. You don't have that trademark, do you?
I don't.
That's good. You should. All right. So I do ask this of all guests. I don't know if you heard it on a podcast of mine, but it's what one question did you wish I had asked? And what is your answer?
I think we touched upon everything. I always say it's like, when someone asks me that, it's like, what one question? I think that the one question would be, why should you not ever do working out or nutrition?
Okay, that's an interesting one. Okay.
Right?
Play devil's
Because
advocate. Yeah.
play devil's advocate. And the answer is there's not a reason. There is not,
reason.
there is no reason. And we have just been kind of brainwashed to think that, this is just the way it is. This is the way I am. It's my DNA. BS. We can get into DNA talk sometime. No, it's not. You can change your DNA. You can change the script. You can change anything.
That is a very profound statement. And I want people to percolate on that a bit. Specifically, the idea that, have you ever read the paper? Actually, still read the physical paper on Sundays, believe it or not. And they have the little health section. And it's always this like foo-foo article about like 7 ways to better health. Like I'm very cynical about these now. And they rarely mention lifting weights. And I think that's a non-negotiable. Like you said, I know you use the term movement and exercise, but would you agree that like you have to be lifting weights?
Yeah.
Period.
And it doesn't have to be, I get women all the time, but I don't want to be Arnold. I don't want to look like a man. Girlfriend, not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. You are lifting your dog, you're lifting your grandkids, you're lifting your kids, you're lifting the groceries. Start training for that.
Yeah.
Make it easier.
Yeah, it's important because I do see in some of these articles, they're like, just move a little bit every day. I'm like, okay, well, I guess if you're not moving, that's nice, but let's get the message out there to really optimize your health.
The shape that you want, the shape that women want, doesn't come with dieting, doesn't come with hours on the treadmill or the Stairmaster or the elliptical. It comes from lifting weights. That's really the shape that you want.
That's right. That's how you become superwoman, lean, lithe, fierce, strong, whatever adjective resonates with you. And Amy, this has been a pleasure so much. Where can listeners learn more about you and your work?
So if they follow the whole time, they could either do 2 things. They can go to my website.
Wait a minute. Don't say that. Everyone's still listening right now. Okay, go ahead.
So since you listened, how about that? So since you listened to the whole thing, you can go to my website, www.amykwilson.com. That's amykwilson.com. And AMYKWILSON. And you can send me a message and say Wits and Weights, and I would love to send you a 5-day fat loss blueprint. Or if you are an Instagrammer, hit that follow button and send me a message that you listen to me on Wits and Weights, and I will send you a 5-day fat loss blueprint that has lots of different recipes to help you get started and make it not so hard.
Awesome. So we will throw that in there, amykwilson.com, and your IG handle, which is what again?
It's the Nutrition Coach Pharmacist.
The Nutrition Coach Pharmacist, and let her know Wits and Weights, and that'll unlock the secret code to the 5-day fat loss blueprint, and she'll send it along your way. Amy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and your insight with us today.
No, thanks for having me.